Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 180 of the podcast, or you're hanging out with us live here on YouTube. If you want to catch the show live, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit the little notification bell thing so it sends you a notification whenever we're going live, because I'm not going to remind you. I'm not your babysitter. Today's Sunday, March the 8th, and we're coming off of UFC 248. From the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. Before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host, all the way from New Jersey. He's feeling under the weather today, and he still toughed it out to join us on this show. Your favorite and mine, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feeling on this Sunday evening, my friend? Daylight savings, still light outside.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker nowadays. I'm so used to being dark at this hour. But Bill, I woke up with a fever yesterday. Luckily, it broke this morning. And hopefully, it's not the coronavirus, because I've been coughing a lot too. But they say that if you're relatively healthy, you give it 48 hours and you'll be fine. So this is day 2 of me resting up and stuff. So I should be good for tomorrow. And if not, I had a good run.
Yeah, I mean, if it isn't the coronavirus, Jeff, I think for the sake of the show, we need to have you get it, just so you can give us some like live reporting on what it feels like, and then we need some data here. I mean, we don't have any data.
Yeah, we need to know what we're up against.
Yeah, so. Exactly. You gotta put yourself out there for the good of mankind, and maybe if you breeze right through it, they can study you to find like what helps fight it off.
Yeah. They can combine my DNA with Yoel Romero's DNA to make this jacked up human being who can survive the coronavirus.
It's immune to the coronavirus. It survives completely on soup.
I think that's the problem. I haven't had enough soup this week.
There you go, man. Yeah, what's up with mom and the Sunday soup? What's going on?
She's gotten lazy, man. So, Bill, I'm actually going to start trying this thing that you suggested. It was that bone broth. I got it sitting on the shelf. I think I'm going to crack it open tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go, kid. That'll help bring that fever down, the old bone broth. I don't know if it's like one of those things that works because you think it works, or if it actually does something, but either way, I feel like it works, so it works for me. Yeah, so daylight savings, don't forget to check the batteries in your smoke detectors. I always like to remind people of that. You know what the fucked up thing about daylight savings time is, Jeff, is nobody tells a 2-year-old that the clocks are going ahead an hour. So I tried to stay up for the fights last night. I didn't make it. We'll get into that in a bit, but my daughter woke up an hour earlier than usual. So what would have been 5 a.m., but it was really 6 a.m. because of the clock springing ahead. And, man, I've just been dragging all day. Like, I haven't been able to catch up, but that's neither here nor there. So the main event last night for me was Weili Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And I think a lot of people agree. And the reason it's the main event for me is because I fell asleep in the middle of the first round of Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. And I woke up on my couch at 4 o'clock in the morning, wondering what the fuck happened. And I did a little bit of reading and like I read a couple of text messages that people sent me during the fight, and I kind of pieced together like my intent was like, oh, I'll watch in the morning. But then in the morning when I read all my text messages and I saw what happened, I was like, you know what would be better than watching the fight is having Jeff the Animal Wilson describe it to me live on the air. So fill me in, Jeff. What did I miss with this middleweight championship bout here?
Bill, you didn't miss much, man. I'll be honest with you. I regret staying up for this one. I lost valuable sleep watching this main event, man.
With a fever, fighting off the coronavirus to watch these middleweights do nothing.
Yeah, basically. Dude, the first round, 7 strikes thrown between them. Yoel Romero is standing there like a statue. I felt like it was, those people who like stand as statues in like Times Square, and then you walk up to them and you start making faces, and then they like jump to scare you. That's what it was like. And then the second round, Israel Adesanya woke up a little bit, started using his range really well, was using leg kicks very, very effectively, and they paid dividends. Rounds 2, 3, and 4 were basically Israel Adesanya throwing leg kicks. There was this one left hand that Romero threw that put a louse on Adesanya's face, actually. Probably the most effective strike, and probably one of the only strikes used by Yoel Romero. Yeah, and then the fifth round was just Romero chasing Adesanya a little bit, but I was just disappointed because Romero, he's had 3 title shots, 2 of them he missed weight for. So for me, I felt like this was a little bit of redemption for him. Silver medalist at the Olympic Games in 2000, I want to say, and then this was his chance to get the gold, man. I thought there was some type of strategy here where he'd take like the first 2 rounds off and then just explode for 3 rounds. Mm-hmm. But none of that happened. Adesanya did a good job of keeping his distance, using his leg kicks on Romero's lead leg. And at the end of that fight, his Romero's lead leg was tenderized, man. It was all pinkish, reddish. So, it was a weird fight because both of these guys are counter strikers. Yeah. But I felt like, at the end in the post-fight interview, Romero was blaming Adesanya for how boring the fight was. But Adesanya is a champ, man. And here's the thing, is you always got to take the belt from Izzy, So I felt like he needed to be the aggressor. He needed to give the judges something to score here. And that's something that Dan Miragliotta kept telling them in between, like right at the start of each round, was, he'd remind them to engage, to give the judges something to score. But man, after the co-main event, that main event was just, I knew it would be hard to follow up, but Bill, it was just such a letdown, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a fight that people are calling the best women's MMA fight of all time. I mean, to follow that is crazy. But for me, it was such a disappointment because I feel like this card dragged out, like the timing was off. And then whenever you have 2 title fights at the end, like it's gonna go extra late. And I know all the people that are listening, like over in Europe, like we got a lot of people in the UK and Switzerland and stuff like that. You guys are all saying, fuck you, man. You don't know what it's like. And you're right. I feel you guys. But, for me, I got a human alarm clock that's going to be smacking me in the face at 6:45 a.m. She doesn't know it's a weekend. She doesn't know there's daylight savings. She doesn't know that I was up watching fights. But, yeah, I didn't make it for this one, and I'm kind of glad. The way it was dragging out, and then Adesanya was walking out so slow to the cage, and like he didn't even do any like flashy dance moves. He's just walking like a zombie. I'm like, come on, man. And maybe if he walked to the cage a little quicker, I would have stayed up for the fight, but didn't make it. And I don't know, man. I don't know what's next here. I guess it's gonna be Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya. You definitely can't make a super fight with Jon Jones after a performance like this. But one question I have for you, Jeff, I was reading a lot of people were saying they thought Romero won the fight. Justin Gaethje was even saying he scored it 4-1. I see you already shaking your head, but for the audio only listeners, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely not, man. I think that if you thought Romero won that fight, you probably fell asleep after the first round as well, because Izzy's output was a lot more. It was like 18 strikes to like 7 each round. Romero landed 2 or 3 really big shots, but other than that, man, it was all Israel Adesanya. There were times where Romero wasn't even throwing punches. I think the third round, I don't think he threw a single strike that landed. So, I try to be nice about this stuff, but I don't know what fight you were watching if you thought Romero won. Yes, he landed the bigger punches, but when you only land 3 punches and your opponent lands 45 strikes on you, there's no comparison. And Izzy was being smart. And Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, John Jones, they've all had their boring fights. They had fights where they fought to win, and a lot of times that meant being boring. So Israel Adesanya went in there with the right game plan. He stayed away from Romero's left hand, which we've seen what that left hand can do to people. Just ask Luke Rockhold.
Yeah.
Ask Robert Whittaker. After 10 rounds with that guy, I don't think he's the same person.
No, not even close.
Yeah, same with Paulo Costa. He needed bicep surgery after his fight with Yoel Romero. And I'm not, attributing that surgery to just that fight. Maybe it was a lingering injury. But the fact remains that Izzy went in there with the right game plan. He stayed away from Romero's power, was beating up that leg. And every time that Romero went to take him down, Izzy either stuffed the takedown or popped right back up. I actually think that Romero was not credited with any takedowns. There was one where he kind of had Izzy on the floor, but Adesanya just used the cage to pop right back up. So, credit to Adesanya. Was it the most exciting fight? No, but, I'm not going to deny that Israel Adesanya won that fight.
All right, fair enough. I'll take your word for it because I have no intention of going back and watching this fight. One stat that I did read that was kind of mind-blowing was that the co-main event between Zhang and Jędrzejczyk combined, they landed 130 more strikes than were attempted in the main event. And that, to me, was like a pretty staggering number. So let's get into this co-main event here, which, a lot of people already saying the greatest women's fight of all time. These two were so back and forth. Like for me, by the end, I thought that Joanna probably outpointed Zhang throughout the course of the fight, but because of the way she looked at the end, I knew she wasn't going to get that title. So for anyone who didn't see it, Joanna had a huge hematoma that would you say quadrupled the size of her forehead? I mean, it was pretty grotesque. She looked like an alien. I hope they got her right to a hospital and were able to scan that thing and do something to get the swelling down, drain it. I don't know what you even do for that. In any case, I thought that Zhang had more moments in the fight where she was slowing down, and then she caught a second wind somewhere like in the middle of the 4th round, and she was able to turn the gas on. And they were just going back and forth. It was very obvious to me that she was landing the harder shots, but that Joanna had the more technical striking by far. The problem was she would land like a 5, 6, 7 piece combination and then wasn't getting out. I think she was having more success when she was landing the 2s and 3s and getting out quick, because when she was staying in there for the 4, 5, 6, 7 piece combination, she was getting countered. And when she got countered, it did damage, as evident by the way her head ballooned up there. So give me your thoughts on this co-main event here, Jeff.
Bill, this fight was absolutely nuts. People are saying it's the greatest title fight in women's MMA history. I agree with that 100%. I think it's probably one of the best title fights in MMA history overall. It's right up there with Alexander Gustafsson versus John Jones, which actually got put into the Hall of Fame last night, which was pretty awesome. That's probably one of my top 5 fights of all time. And Zhang versus Joanna is probably in there at this point as well. Dude, I was just really impressed with Zhang's tenacity, because I was concerned after the second round. In the second round, she was looking tired. She was taking some deep breaths. And I was worried because, there's 3 more rounds to go after this, if nobody gets finished soon. So I felt like, she did a great job of, getting that second wind. And I think you're right, Bill. Somewhere in that 4th round, after like 2.5 minutes, she was, moving around a lot more. And dude, the thing is, I felt like at the end of this fight, I couldn't tell you who won.
Yeah.
Had no idea who won this fight. I would hate to be a judge for fights like this. And I feel like usually the judges get it wrong. I did not feel that way with this particular fight, but I could have seen it going for Joanna. I agree with you, Bill. I think that the way she looked definitely did not help her case. Dude, she looked like a different person at the end of this fight, man.
Or not even a person.
Yeah. She looked like Predator when he takes his helmet off and his mouth is like...
Or like Alien with the forehead, got like that hangover forehead.
Yeah. Definitely something out of science fiction. And Joanna got pieced up, man. Her nose was in a little bit of an S shape. So I felt like Joanna definitely outstruck Weili Zhang, but Zhang was just so tough in there, and she hit so hard, dude. I think that this is one of those fights where Joanna's gonna need a long time to recover. She's been in some wars, but nothing like that, man.
Yeah,
and I'd love to see them replay it somewhere down the line, but I honestly could have seen it going either way. I had no idea who won at the end of this fight.
And so many 5-round fights. Her last fight with Michelle Waterson was a 3-rounder, but that was an absolute war, that fight. So there was a lot of damage there, and then before that, Shevchenko, went the distance with her. That was one of the more exciting fights in women's MMA history as well. So it seems like one of the key ingredients to the best fights in women's MMA history is Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And she's been, it seems, if you look at her record, she's been on like a downward spiral, but it's not like her performances are getting worse. Like, she's looking good in there every time. So it's unfortunate for her because the talent level is raising, and she's got to deal with that. As for Zhang, I feel like she's real dense for 115, man. I don't know what her weight cut is like, but she's 30 years old, and I can tell you from personal experience, after 30, the weight doesn't come off as easy anymore. So I'm thinking there's an inevitable move up for Zhang, maybe after 2 more fights or so. And we may see her meeting up with Valentina Shevchenko or whoever may be the flyweight champion at that point. But it'll be interesting to see what's next for Weili Zhang here. She's coming pretty close to cleaning this division out, and then there'll be nothing left to do but move up. But I think if Joanna takes a good amount of time off and then gets 1 win under her belt, they would definitely run this one back, in my opinion. Let's move on down the card here, Jeff. This is actually a pretty fantastic card, despite the fact that the pacing seemed way off. Beneil Dariush and Drakkar Klose. This was one of the best rounds of the whole night. The second round of this fight, where it was only a minute long, but Drakkar Klose rocked Beneil Dariush. It looked like he was going to finish him. He went to swarm on him, and then Dariush comes back and rocks Drakkar Klose and puts him down and out for the count. And that finishing shot, I think it was like an overhand left. And I watched it in slow motion, and you could see Drakkar Klose's head shake as he went down, and his mouthpiece popped out, and he was done for. Credit to Drakkar Klose in this fight, because he had Beneil Dariush, high-level grappler, on his back for a good portion of that first round, and he survived there. And then he had Dariush hurt, and then Dariush showed he has some hands. So give me your thoughts here, Jeff.
Oh yeah, dude. This, and this was one of my picks as one of the most exciting fights on this card. And Bill, I even texted you when this one was over about how good this fight was going to be. Dude, 2 warriors are in there. Klose only had 1 loss on his record heading into this one, and we knew he was good on the feet. But I didn't think that he'd be able to hold off Dariush's. You all right there, Bill?
Yeah.
Nice save, bud.
Thanks. I didn't spill it. For those of you who can't see, I almost spilled my beer, but I did it. I have. I still have it.
Well,
Sorry, Jeff. Keep going.
of course. I mean, this is an amateur hour. We knew you weren't going to spill anything.
I would have
But
laid out for it, Jeff. I would. I would have made sure that none of it spilled. But, go ahead. Tell me about this fight.
yeah, dude, super exciting, and credit to Drakkar Klose, being able to hold off Beneil Dariush's grappling attack, especially he kept hand fighting, and Klose just doing the right things here, but in that second round, man, after he hurt Beneil Dariush, he got cocky, dude. He stopped picking his shots. He just started swarming him, and Dariush made him pay for it, man. And you knew it was bad when the mouthpiece came out, man. Mm-hmm. When the mouthpiece comes out, you know it's a hard shot. So super exciting fight. And Bill, I agree with you, man. This card, top to bottom, was just really, really exciting. It dragged a little bit, but I wasn't too upset with that because of the quality of each fight.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's keep going down the line because we got a lot to cover here. Neil Magny, man, looked phenomenal against Jingliang Li. So Li making his United States debut. Did we confirm this? Yeah. So first time fighting in the States. Every other fight he's had has been in China. He's been one of the biggest superstars to come out of China so far. They really wanted to test him here with Neil Magny, who's a grizzled veteran who weaponizes pace, and it's just good everywhere. And he just puts a pace on guys that if you're not an elite level fighter, you're going to crumble under that pressure. And that's what happened with Li. He came out strong in the first round and he was throwing big shots. But if you don't put Neil Magny out, he's not going to stop. That guy is relentless. And a lot of people forget how good he is. And the wins that he has. You look at Neil Magny's resume and the people he's been in there with, it's like, damn, this guy has been a high level fighter for a long time. And he was all over Jingliang Li in this fight. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill. So I made a mistake here. It's not Li Jingliang's first fight in the United States. He's actually had a couple fights, but that's my mistake. I should have looked that up before we started. Whatever.
Fake news. Fake news. Yeah. MMA on the rocks.
But yeah, dude, I was really impressed with Neil Magny. He really reminded everybody how good he is at the welterweight division, and he just made such a good use of his reach and length, man. There was one point, I think it was the first or second round, where Neil Magny had Li Jingliang, and he had him kind of wrapped up in like a bear hug from behind, and Neil Magny was just able to use his reach to really wrap up Li Jingliang, and even up close. In close quarters, his reach was useful because he was pinning Li Jingliang's arm down, and just his other arm had the freedom to just punch Jingliang in the face, and Li Jingliang just could never get going. If the fight was in the clinch, if it was at distance, Neil Magny was just in full control, man. Credit to Li Jingliang, because in the third round, he had Neil Magny on top of him for basically the entire round, and Jingliang had to realize it was kind of over at that point. Good performance from Neil Magny, especially because Li Jingliang's a tough dude, man. He's got some impressive wins under his belt as well. So, Bill, what did you think of Neil Magny's call out here?
Yeah, I liked it. I know you texted me that, maybe he hasn't earned the fight with Michael Chiesa yet, but I think it's an interesting fight, man. The two guys that are pretty solid everywhere. I think Magny probably has a striking advantage. Chiesa's grappling is a little cleaner. He's got more finishing ability on the ground, but Magny's hung in there with Damian Maia, and did okay against him. So I think it's a fun fight. I think there's a lot of fun fights for Neil Magny. I would like to see him get back to being more active. Here's a guy who I think holds the record. He's tied for the record of most fights in a calendar year with the UFC. In any case, I liked it. Give me your thoughts, Jeff. Did you change your mind at all?
Yeah, after hearing what you had to say, yeah, I'd like to see Neil Magny against Michael Chiesa. I think that's a really good fight to make. I think that they're two of the bigger guys in this welterweight division. So, I'd like to see who can make better use of the grappling and the reach advantage.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how Michael Chiesa goes about getting inside Neil Magny's guard here. Magny, long dude, he had about 8 inches of reach on Li Jingliang, which, he did such a good job of using that. So I'd like to see how he does against Michael Chiesa. And, Michael Chiesa, really good grappler, black belt in jiu-jitsu, but Neil Magny's no slouch on the ground either. So I think that's a good fight to make at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Fun fight that I don't want to spend too much time on, and it was really close. Cowboy Oliveira and Max Griffin. This was a bloody one. The way I saw it, Cowboy lured Max Griffin into his game plan, which is more of a brawling Muay Thai style. Max Griffin does his best work when he stays composed and throws straight punches down the pipe, and mixes in his wrestling. It's surprising. His wrestling is kind of surprising. I think he was second for most takedowns in 2019. And I think he was only second to Curtis Blades. We got Tom making a comment here. He wants to fight for 5 rounds, Magny and Chiesa, just to see the two cardio machines go at it. I'm all for that, man. I like that idea. Yeah. But give me your thoughts on the Oliveira Griffin fight.
Oh, Bill, I think that this could have easily been fight of the night if it weren't for Weili versus Joanna. So back and forth. Going into the 3rd round, I had this kind of at a round apiece. But Oliveira did it, like you said, Oliveira did a good job of letting Max Griffin fall into his game. Like you said, Max Griffin, a very technical striker. His wrestling, I feel, is really underrated because he doesn't need to use it super often because of how good his striking is. But Alex Oliveira, man, turned this into a scrap. And just did such a good job of in the 3rd round, changing the pace, using his grappling more, staying on top of Max Griffin for basically the whole round. So really, really good fight from both of these guys. And, I thought Oliveira deserved the win. He bloodied Max Griffin up. And in that 3rd round, it was just everywhere. You could see it going into his eyes. So, credit to Max Griffin because he is a warrior, man.
Yeah, he's a tough dude, and he's a guy who flies under the radar. He's got a lot of big wins in the UFC, but he doesn't have like the personality that makes him stand out in people's minds. So unfortunately for Max Griffin, a lot of those wins have gone unremembered. Moving on down here, Sean O'Malley back after a 2-year layoff because of a tainted supplement issue or something like that. I didn't follow too closely on that one. Big win for him, though, coming off from so much time off and looking fantastic against a tough dude in José Quiñónez, who's not an easy out for anybody. And O'Malley made it look like it was a total mismatch in there. Dropped him hard and then finished him off with some hammer fists. Give me your thoughts on the Sugar Show here, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, O'Malley looked great in there. He looked like he didn't miss a beat in the 2 years off. And, good for him because, like you said, Quiñónez, not an easy task for anybody. And, O'Malley put him away in the 1st round. So good for him.
Yeah, man. And that's it. I mean, we heard Merab Dvalishvili call out O'Malley a couple of weeks ago. I don't think that fight's going to happen. I don't think the UFC wants to put O'Malley in there with a guy who has such tenacious grappling. I think they want to keep putting him in there with guys who are going to stand up with him. But maybe down the line, that's a fight we could see. There's a lot of fun fights for O'Malley. I want to see him move up and fight Chase Hooper. At 145, just because I feel like it would look like the good and evil version of the same guy fighting each other. It's just got like Like O'Malley looks like Chase Hooper with face tattoos. And I think that would be fun just for the parody of it, because I love parody, Jeff. Mark O'Madsen. Damn, this guy has some insane smothering wrestling pressure that just looks so uncomfortable. I mean, it's not the most exciting way to put on a fight, but if you're a fan of grappling and you've been in these positions, you understand what he's doing to his opponents and the way he makes them carry his weight and lets them up just enough and then smushes them back down just to break their spirit. It's pretty impressive to watch, and it's even more impressive when you consider the fact that Austin Hubbard was still in this fight in the third round, and he was throwing big bombs, and he rocked Madsen late in the fight, and had him pretty dazed. But Madsen showed that he could take a punch in addition to having world-class wrestling. Silver medalist in the Olympics as a wrestler, and bringing that to MMA now. He's got a lot of holes to fill, and he's got a lot of catching up to do. But that wrestling, man, just the thought of a matchup between him and like a Kamaru Usman or a Colby Covington down the line is really intriguing to me. I mean, he's nowhere near ready for that yet, but just the fact that it could be a possibility somewhere down the line is really interesting to me. Did you catch this one, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, Mark Madsen making a statement here. His wrestling is vicious, dude. He doesn't let you come up for air. And, credit to Austin Hubbard here, because in the third round, he started making a comeback. All the judges had it 29-28. That's how I had it too. I had Hubbard winning that third round. But man, Mark Madsen, dude, he just puts this pressure and a pace on you. It reminds me of Khabib, Nurmagomedov here. And, that's something we can see down the line too. If Madsen starts stringing some wins together, which, he's already in the process of doing, that'd probably be a fun fight too, somewhere down the line.
Yeah, man. That pressure is just like so. It makes you feel claustrophobic to watch, because you know what he's doing, and you know that he's just like he's not giving you any air to breathe. Like you're just trying to come up for air, and every time you get close to the surface, you get pulled back down. So it's that kind of feeling. Like if you've ever been like swimming or snorkeling or something, and you try to go up for air when you like desperately need it. Imagine if you got pulled back down right at the moment when you're about to breach the surface of the water. It's kind of uncomfortable to watch somebody with such smothering pressure like that. But I was impressed with Austin Hubbard for the fact that he was able to keep swinging in that third round. Moving on, Rodolfo Vieira, world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, multiple-time world champion, Pan-American world champion, all kinds, like every credential you could have, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The guy is built like a fucking action figure. In there against Safirbek Safarov, who is built like, any dad at a barbecue in Russia. But so I was like kind of pulling for Safarov when this fight started. I was like, man, it would be kind of cool to see him like looking like that and beating a guy who looks like Vieira. But Vieira eventually getting it done with that arm triangle. Credit to Safarov, he survived with Vieira on his back, and the guy is a choking machine. So for the fact that he was able to hang in there for so long, and withstand the back attack of Vieira was impressive. But the interesting thing about this is if Vieira didn't finish this fight in the first round, he probably would have lost via doctor stoppage because his eye was completely swollen shut. It was pretty gruesome. It was not as bad as the hematoma that Joanna Jędrzejczyk had in the co-main event, but the location of it, made it so that his eye was swollen shut. And yeah, they probably had to slice his eyeball open and drain some fluid out of there. But impressive performance by Vieira. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think he needed to win in that round because after when they raised his hand, you could see that eye was shut, dude.
Mm-hmm.
the doctor's not going to allow that to continue. So good call. Safarov's a tough dude, man. He survived a lot longer than I thought he would in there. Vieira is a triangular strangler, dude. Undefeated. I think all of his wins have come by submission at this point in the UFC. Don't quote me on that, but a tough dude, man. And he looks like he's ready to make a splash in his middleweight division. So we'll see, man. I'd like to see him take a little bit of a step up in competition, and then let's see what he's got, man. Because I don't see anybody challenging Israel Adesanya anytime soon besides Paulo Costa, but we'll see. We'll see what Paulo Costa has for Adesanya. So this middleweight division, it's getting interesting, Bill.
You are correct. He has submitted every opponent in the UFC, both of them. So he's only had 2 fights in the UFC. He's finished every one of his fights by submission except one. He does have a TKO victory in the ACB promotion, whatever that may be. Moving right along here, this one is another one that could have been fight of the night, in my opinion. Gerald Meerschaert and Deron Winn on the prelims. These guys were both landing some big bombs on each other. A physical mismatch. Meerschaert at 6'1", and Deron Winn stands at about 5'8", or I think it's 5'8". I think he's by far the shortest guy in the middleweight division. But man, when he closes that distance, he lands some nasty uppercuts. His wrestling is top notch. This was really back and forth. I think Deron Winn was landing the bigger shots here. But then when Gerald Meerschaert got on top in that third round, no, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. He rocked Deron Winn really badly with a lot of big shots, chased him down, dragged him to the ground with a front headlock, took his back, sunk in a rear naked choke that wasn't even under the chin, but that black belt squeeze, man, he was just able to get the tap out of Deron Winn. This is one of the most exciting fights on the card, in my opinion. So if you guys missed this one, go back and check it out. Did you catch this one, Jeff?
Yeah, man, super exciting. Definitely happy for Gerald Meerschaert. We've talked about how good of a fighter he is, and when he shows up, he comes to play, man. And great submission in the third round. And Deron Winn's a tough dude, man. So very good feather in Gerald Meerschaert's cap here.
Yeah, Meerschaert needed a big win here. He was coming off that controversial loss to what's his name? Your boy.
Oh, why can't I remember? Eric Anders?
Yeah, Eric Anders. That was in Tampa not too long ago. So yeah, that was a really fun fight. Glad to see Gerald Meerschaert get back in the win column. And then the last fight I want to talk about, because I didn't see the first fight. So if you did, Jeff, you can fill me in. Giga Chikadze getting a split decision victory over Jamal Emmers. This was the only one on the whole card that I feel like the judges just got plain wrong. I thought that Chikadze won the first round and Emmers easily won the second two. Chikadze came out big in the first round, throwing a lot of big kicks and stuff. But then when Emmers held him up against the cage a little bit and got him grappling, you could see his arms got heavy real quick. You could tell he doesn't do a whole lot of grappling. His grappling defense wasn't terrible, because he didn't get submitted or anything, but his whole plan is to just hold on to you tight until it gets stood back up. And then in the second round, Emmers busted out some wrestling out of nowhere, man. He hit this double leg. That was one of the most beautifully timed double legs I've ever seen. And it was just seamless. Like he just swept Chikadze right off his feet, put him on his back, past his guard, and then went to work. He wound up getting swept there. I don't know what the judges were looking at this one, man, but I feel like Jamal Emmers really got robbed in this fight. But I guess good for Chikadze. Give me your thoughts here, Jeff, on this bantamweight. No. I don't know.
It looks like it was a featherweight bout.
Yeah, featherweight.
Bill, unfortunately, I did not catch this one. But I'll probably have to go back and check it out. Especially because I'm a fan of the grappling. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch this one. But it's Vegas, so I'm not surprised of judges getting fights wrong here. Bill, I did want to talk about one quick thing before we move on. Is that opening fight? Well, two things. One is the opening fight. Donna Batgarel versus Guido Canetti, and it was very back and forth at the beginning. And then about 3 minutes into the first round, Dana just slips this one shot and hits Guido Canetti with a kind of like a hook and jab at the same time. It was like it was thrown as a jab, but it was a hook too. You got to watch it to see what I'm talking about.
The old hook jab.
Yeah, it was a fusion of those two punches. But man, just put Canetti down as soon as it landed. And it was just so well timed. One of those knockouts where nobody really sees it coming, but it's so sweet when you go back and watch it. Top to bottom, I thought this card was absolutely fantastic. Bill, there was only one fight that never happened on this card. And, we've talked about it before. Emily Whitmire misses weight by 1.5 pounds to fight Polyana Viana. But Bill, she chooses not to take the hour to lose the weight. She's ready to fight. But Bill, she looked terrible. Absolutely terrible for the weigh-ins on Friday. She was you could see her shaking. She was super out of it. Like she kind of didn't know what was going on around her. And then Saturday, she needs to go to the emergency room. So Bill, what do you think a commission can do here with terms of weight cutting? Because we've seen some of the negative effects here time and time again.
I think, they need to be a little bit more diligent, like measuring hydration levels. And if you're not at a certain level, like you're not even going to be allowed to cut weight. And once people, it'll be a little bit, it'll take a little while for it to take effect. And then, after a while, people will just move up and wait. The other thing is like they got to start deducting points if you miss weight, because the financial penalties aren't doing it. People are willing to pay that 30% of their purse to be able to cheat. And I think that's what really needs to happen. You just gotta have like some stricter things. I see you laughing over here, Jeff. What's going on?
I'm just laughing at some of the comments here because Tom said that that was like getting attacked by a saltwater crocodile when he took him down. And then Matt Temple replied, Tom just head over and roll with the animal. Wrestling a crocodile would be about half that. Thank you, Matt. We've rolled together a few times. I can only remember some of them. And
Matt's wrestled a crocodile. I've seen it. I've seen him.
Oh man, fun times.
Yeah. So speaking of friends of ours, Jeff, the Southpaw Outlaw, Serena DeJesus, fighting in the Invicta tournament. I didn't know this was a tournament until I turned it on, and I only tuned in to watch Serena. So she won her first fight, looked good in there. Unanimous decision. I was like, oh, great, good for her. And then I knew there was a bantamweight tournament going on, but I didn't know you had to fight multiple times in one night. Like I thought we'd left that back in Pride, like back in the medieval times of MMA, but apparently it's still a thing. So Serena fights again, goes to decision, loses a decision. She was very unhappy with the judges' scores in that one. But Vegas gonna Vegas. But shout out to Serena for fucking getting in there, fighting 2 times in one night. I mean, that's 6 rounds of fighting. And and being more active in those 6 rounds than Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. So big shout out to our buddy Serena. And it looked like she recovered just fine from fighting twice in one night. So she's a fucking savage. I'm happy for her for the fact that she picked up her first win in Invicta, and then she looked good in the second fight too. So I'm sure they're going to keep her around. So yeah, a big shout out to her. Any thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, huge shout out to Serena. 2 fights in one night, and then she was still at UFC 248 last night. She was posting on Twitter. She didn't have the best seats in the world, but she was there. Yeah, dude. Huge shout out to Serena here, and I'm glad that we can kind of watch her on her journey here. Invicta's definitely a really good organization to be with. They're under the UFC, so we could see some big things from Serena. I think sooner rather than later. So good for her getting her first win. And she's a tough chick, man. So I'm sure she's going to be in the win column again really soon.
Hell yeah, man. I say this every time we bring her up, but one of my favorite people in this mixed martial arts world, which is, a pretty small community. If you think about it, there's only a few degrees of separation. When you get to know people in this community and you start talking a little bit like, oh, I've trained with so-and-so and oh, I know them and oh, I've sparred with them a few times. And yeah, it's a pretty small world once you really get into it. Awesome card coming up next weekend, Jeff. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the beer I almost spilled before. So this is a Half Acre Beer Company, and they're out of Chicago, Illinois. And this is a pretty difficult beer to find around here. And this one is a double dry hopped IPA. It's called Shores. It's 7% alcohol. I've been staying away from the beer lately, Jeff. Been sticking to the bourbon. Just beach season and everything coming up. But when I saw this beer in the grocery store, I knew that this brewery is hard to come by around here. So I picked up a 4-pack, and it's nice. So double dry hop IPA is just a fancy way of saying they put hops in it twice. They put hops in before the beer's fermented, and then they put hops in again after the beer's fermented just to give it a little hoppier flavor, which usually gives the beer kind of like a real bitterness. But then they do other things like adding lactose sugars and things like that to kind of smooth out the bitterness. And this one is not very sugary. I don't think they added lactose to it, but it doesn't have that bitter aftertaste. So it's a nice IPA. And these 16-ounce cans at 7%, 1.5 of those, and you're feeling pretty nice. It's not like the old days, Jeff, where you had to put back like 15 Busch Lights before you catch a buzz. Or for me, it was Miller High Life. That was my go-to back in the college days. $11.99 for a 30-pack, and it's a champagne of beers,
Yeah, for me it was the Blue Ribbon, man.
PBR, ruined by hipsters everywhere.
I know.
I do like a nice PBR still every now and then. There was a bar in Lower Manhattan. I think it was on the Lower West Side. It's called the Cabin with a K. I don't know if I ever took you there, Jeff, but you go there and get a PBR and a shot of well whiskey for $3, and that's in Manhattan. Man. That's unheard of.
Yeah, that's the best deal in town, dude.
Yeah, it was a fucking dump. I loved it.
The closest I could think of was this bar in actually right outside of the Barclays, because I remember I was there for that first ESPN card when the UFC had the deal with ESPN when it was TJ Dillashaw versus Henry Cejudo. So right before that, my friends and I go to this bar, and for $7 you got a Tecate and a shot of tequila. So that's probably the closest thing that I could think of to that good of a deal for $3. This one was $7, so a little bit more, but yeah. Those are some gems.
Yeah, and I don't know what the fuck that well whiskey was, but yeah, it does the trick, man. And I don't know if that was a happy hour, if they just did that all the time. It's the cabin was never a place you go to. The cabin is a place you end up. You never said like, oh, I set out to go to the cabin last night. It's like, I wound up at the cabin last night. And then people pretty much, like, people who know New York pretty much know how your night went. Like, you went and got a 99-cent slice after that. Took the gypsy bus home. Only people from New York and New Jersey know what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, let's get into this fight night. We got another question from Tom. He wants to know if a fight's ever been stopped because of hematomas. I kind of addressed that earlier, but not completely. So it depends on the location. So if the hematoma is on the forehead and it's just kind of bulbing out, it definitely could be stopped. I would like to get a cage side physician to comment on this, like what would make them stop it, because if that thing takes like a big impact, like if you take a shin to that and it bursts, you get some really bad internal bleeding. So it would have to be like really looked at and really assessed. But if the hematoma is like over the eye to the point where the eye is swollen shut, we've seen that a bunch of times, and fights have been stopped. One recent example was the Cowboy Cerrone, and was it Justin Gaethje?
I don't think so.
When Cerrone had a broken nose and he tried to blow his nose and it caused the hematoma that made his eye swell shut. Tony Ferguson?
No, I think the first time. I think that might have been Justin Gaethje. Yeah.
All right, somebody look that up and get back to us. In any case, yes, they will stop fights because of hematomas. It just depends on the location. Good question. All right, so let's get into this UFC Fight Night 170. This is going to be in Brazil, in a place I've never heard of. Brasilia, Brazil. Kevin Lee and Charles Oliveira. Kevin Lee, man, you got to give him credit. It was Tony Ferguson. Thank you, Matt
right.
Temple, for pointing that, for hitting us with that fact right there. Matt's going to be our young Jamie today. He's going to like from the Joe Rogan. So Kevin Lee taking on Charles Oliveira. You got to give credit to Kevin Lee, man. A couple losses, a couple of things didn't go his way, and he's getting back in there with tougher opponents than he needs to. Gregor Gillespie was a very dangerous fight for him to take, and he got in there, head kicked the fuck out of him. And now he's taking out Charles Oliveira, who holds the record for most submissions in UFC history. Give me your thoughts on this main event here, Jeff.
Bill, I'm excited, man, but I think that Kevin Lee has a very tough task ahead of him, man. Charles Oliveira, his takedown game is pretty solid, and, even if it's not, his ground game is vicious, dude. He can get submissions from just about anywhere. His striking has improved a little bit as well. Kevin Lee definitely wins this fight if it stays on the feet, but I don't think that Charles Oliveira is somebody he's going to want to take to the ground. So I think Kevin Lee's going to have to rely on his game on the feet here. But Bill, overall, this whole card looks really, really good, man. Yeah,
I'm actually much more excited for this card than when I initially looked at the UFC 248 card. We got Demian Maia and Gilbert Burns, man. If this fight goes to the ground, this is going to be a spectacle. Two of the best grapplers, period. Not just in MMA. Two of the best grapplers in the world. Demian Maia, Abu Dhabi champion from back in the day. Gilbert Burns still competes actively in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Moving up to welterweight for this opportunity. Gilbert Burns, man, one of the most underrated guys. I say this all the time in combat sports. I mean, this is a guy who, it's like, you tell me the date and what the rule sets are, and I'll be there. That's Gilbert Burns. All right, we're doing MMA March 14th and March 15th. We're doing Abu Dhabi trials. Cool. I'll be there. Let me know. Send a car for me, or don't. I'll get there. I'll walk. Fucking Gilbert Burns is an animal. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Oh, dude, this one's gonna be a barn burner, man. Both of them really skilled on the ground. I think Gilbert Burns has a little bit more power in his hands if it stays on the feet. But yeah, that's one I'm excited to see. And Bill, I think we just finished watching Gilbert Burns compete in Submission Underground like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So super excited for this one. There's a whole bunch of fights here I want to watch. Renato Moicano versus Damir Hadzovic is going to be good. Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov, Francisco Trinaldo versus John McDessie, Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos is on here. Jussier Formiga versus Brandon Moreno looks good. Ronda Marcos is fighting on this card as well. Marina Moros. Bill, top to bottom, this card looks amazing, dude. You know those cards in Brazil, they don't let you down, man.
Yeah, Randa Marcos getting in there against Amanda Ribas, who's gonna be hometown girl, I believe. And then the one you skipped over that I'm really excited for, another really great grappling matchup, is Rani Yaya and Enrique Barzola. That's gonna be a really fun one. Yeah, man, up and down, this is an awesome card. You know, they're really giving Brazil a show here. You know, Damian Maia getting in there, that's going to be big for the Brazilian fans. This is a really awesome card. Charles Oliveira headlining. You know, if you're a Brazilian fan going to this event, like, what could be better than this card? Except, you know, if you throw like Anderson Silva in there or something.
Yeah.
But that, I gotta say, if I'm looking up and down this card and I gotta pick one that's gonna be like the biggest barn burner, I'm looking at Francisco Trinaldo and John McDessie, man. That's gonna be a fun fight. Those are two guys who throw hard from bell to bell. And there's gonna be something spectacular that happens in that fight. I have a feeling. So, man, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, dude. For me, it's Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov, man. I think somebody's going to sleep in that fight.
Yeah, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see how Johnny Walker responds to, you know, his first big loss in the UFC, getting knocked out. You know, coming in with so much momentum and getting derailed. And Nikita Krylov is not a walk in the park for anybody. That's a tough dude. Very well rounded, slick submissions, good solid stand up. He's not gonna fall for any like fuckery on the feet, like any stupid dog and pony tricks. I think that'll be fun. But yeah, and Renato Moicano and Hadzovic, that's gonna be a fun one too. Yeah, I'm really the more I'm looking at this, I'm like, fuck, I want to see every one of these fights. So this is gonna be a really fun card. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if this is gonna be one of those like weird time ones where they just like have it at 4:00 in the morning for no reason. But I think it's probably gonna be regular start time. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, Jeff. You got anything else you want to get off your chest here?
No, I'm excited for this card, man. And I think it's going to be 8 to 10 for the main card, which is really nice because, you know, I like my sleep, Bill.
That is fantastic. Might actually make it through this one. I was had a rough week this week, and you know, kiddo's been waking up earlier and earlier. So maybe with this time change, she'll get herself on a better schedule. But yeah, didn't make it to I haven't missed a main event in a while, Jeff, but I was out cold, man. I was sitting there watching it, and then the next thing, I woke up looking at the lights. You know, much like Drakkar Klose probably last night.
Yeah, well, I can't blame you, Bill, because last night's main event was horrifying.
Yeah, that probably didn't help. That Adesanya walkout started to make me doze off, and then that first round, I was like, "We're just looking at each other," and out. Maybe if I have trouble sleeping tonight, I'll put it back on.
Oh yeah, that it'll definitely help. But yeah, I was just let down, man. It was Romero's last title shot. I doubt I'll get another one at 185.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, you never know. Like, he technically shouldn't have even gotten this one. He's coming off a loss. So anything can happen.
Apparently, yeah.
All you got to do is stay ready. So there we go. All right. So once again, Half Acre Beer Company, Chicago, Illinois. Keep an eye out for them at your local craft beer spot or wherever you go to get your sudsy beverages. Good stuff there. It's got the Bill Welker stamp of approval. So take that for what it's worth. Reach out to us if you have any comments on the show or you have any suggestions for improving or any criticisms or anything, really. Talk to us about anything. You can get a hold of Jeff at @animal_Wilson on Twitter and Instagram. Don't forget to give the animal a follow on Instagram. Encourage him to post some more on there too while you're at it. And you guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks on all your favorite social media platforms. Wherever you're listening or enjoying the show, please give us a like, give us a subscribe. Please give us a rating. It helps other people find the show. And write a review with your rating too. I always like to read the ratings people leave. And if you want to leave a funny one and roast us, go ahead. Just make sure you leave us 5 stars. And if it's funny enough, I'll read it on the air. That's it, man. That's all we got. So we're going to sign off here, and we're looking forward to a fun fight night next week. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.